My name is Sarah, and at 28, I never expected my life would become a cautionary tale about trust. Just last month, I sold my tech startup for $20 million, ready to buy my dream home with a $10 million cash offer. Growing up with my struggling single mom, Carol, and younger sister, Emily, I thought I knew what family meant. So when I needed a safe place for the cash overnight, I chose my mom's house. By morning, both my mom and sister had vanished with the money, leaving just a taunting note. If you're wondering why I'm smiling, stick around. Before I continue, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe to see how I turned this betrayal into the sweetest revenge. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Portland with peeling wallpaper and a persistent mold problem. Mom worked double shifts at the local diner, coming home with swollen feet and the permanent scent of grease clinging to her uniform. Money was always tight. Christmas meant one modest gift. Birthdays were celebrated with homemade cake, and vacations simply didn't exist in our vocabulary. From an early age, I understood that education was my ticket out. While other kids played after school, I studied. When my classmates went to parties on weekends, I worked part-time at the local grocery store, saving every penny. My determination bordered on obsession. I remember my high school counselor, Mrs. Jenkins, telling me, "Sarah, you work like someone's chasing you." And in a way, something was. The fear of remaining trapped in the cycle of poverty. My efforts paid off when I received a full scholarship to MIT. Even then, I worked 2 part-time jobs to cover living expenses. I survived on ramen noodles and free campus events, sending what little I could spare back home to help Mom and Emily. Those college years were a blur of lectures, coding marathons, and late-night shifts at the campus library. After graduation, I landed a junior developer position at a small tech firm. Within 2 years, I had developed enough industry connections and confidence to branch out on my own. My startup, SecureFlow, specialized in encryption software for financial institutions. We struggled initially, 18-hour workdays, maxed-out credit cards, and the constant terror of failure. But by our 3rd year, we'd secured major clients and began turning significant profits. Throughout this journey, my relationship with my mother, Carol, remained complicated. On the surface, she seemed supportive, congratulating me on achievements and proudly telling her friends about my success. But there were moments when I caught a flicker of something else in her eyes. Resentment, perhaps. When I'd excitedly share a business breakthrough, she'd listen quietly before changing the subject to Emily's struggles or her own health problems. As my company grew, I made sure to share my success. I bought Mom a modest but comfortable 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood, complete with a garden she'd always wanted. I paid off her medical debts and set up a monthly allowance generous enough that she could finally quit waitressing. She accepted everything with a smile that never quite reached her eyes, saying things like, "Well, I guess all those years of sacrifice were worth it," or at least one of my girls made something of herself. Emily was 5 years younger than me and seemingly allergic to responsibility. While I had been driven and focused, she drifted through life, dropping out of community college after 1 semester, cycling through retail jobs, and always having some drama with friends or boyfriends. Mom made endless excuses for her. "She's just finding herself," or "Not everyone can be as focused as you, Sarah." In recent years, Emily's financial dependence had increased. Every few months, there would be an emergency. Car repairs, overdue rent, unexpected medical bills. I always sent money, though I'd occasionally suggest career counseling or offer to help her find a steadier job. These suggestions were usually met with teary phone calls to Mom about how I thought I was better than everyone else. Last Thanksgiving, I noticed something odd. Emily kept stepping outside to take phone calls, speaking in hushed tones. When I asked about it, Mom jumped in to say Emily was finally seeing someone promising. This subject was quickly changed. Looking back now, I should have paid more attention to the secretive glances they exchanged. Despite these undercurrents, I never doubted their love. We were family, after all. When the offer came to acquire SecureFlow for $20 million, they were the first people I called. Mom cried and said she was proud. Emily squealed and asked if this meant I could help her start the boutique she'd been talking about. I was too caught up in my own excitement to notice how quickly their thoughts turned to what my success meant for them. The acquisition process took months of negotiations, legal reviews, and paperwork. Throughout it all, I dreamed of the house I'd spotted in the hills overlooking the city. A modern architectural marvel with walls of glass, an infinity pool, and enough space to finally have a proper home office and guest rooms for family visits. At $28 million, it was extravagant. But I planned to offer $10 million in cash to beat out other interested buyers. My life seemed perfect. My company's technology would reach more people under its new ownership. I had financial security beyond anything I could have imagined growing up, and I was about to purchase my dream home. I was even engaged to Mark, a kind and grounded environmental engineer who loved me for who I was, not what I had. How quickly it would all unravel, I had no idea. The day I walked into Pacific Northwest Bank to withdraw $10 million remains vivid in my memory. The private banking manager, Mr. Thompson, a balding man with round spectacles and perpetually furrowed brows, couldn't hide his concern. "Ms. Walker, I strongly advise against this," he said, tapping his Mont Blanc pen nervously against his leather portfolio. "A wire transfer is standard for real estate transactions of this magnitude. Cash presents unnecessary risks." I anticipated resistance. "I understand your concern, Mr. Thompson, but this property has multiple interested buyers. A cash offer will give me the edge I need. The seller has specifically mentioned preferring the immediacy of cash." He leaned forward, lowering his voice, as though sharing a secret. "Even if that's the case, we're talking about $10 million in physical currency. That's $20,500 bills. It would fill several large duffel bags and weigh approximately 22 pounds per million. I've done my research. I'm aware. I've arranged for private security to accompany me directly to a secure location. The money will only be in my possession for 48 hours at most before the closing meeting." After nearly an hour of similar exchanges and signing multiple liability waivers, Mr. Thompson reluctantly began the process. I had to wait 3 business days for the bank to prepare such a large cash withdrawal. They needed to bring in currency from regional reserves, a fact that only reinforced my belief that a cash offer would impress the sellers. When I told Mark about my plan that evening over dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant, his reaction mirrored Mr. Thompson's. "Sarah, this is insane," he said, setting down his fork, his penny alla vodka forgotten. "You're putting yourself at risk. What if someone follows you from the bank? What if there's a robbery?" "I've hired Ben's security firm," I countered, referring to my college friend who ran a personal security company. 2 armed guards will escort me from the bank to my mom's house. The money will be in her safe overnight, and then the guards will escort me to the closing." "Why my mom's safe? Why not a bank safety deposit box?" His brown eyes reflected genuine concern. "Bank boxes have size limitations. Besides, mom's safe is practically a vault. I had it installed for her 3 years ago when she started collecting those ridiculous porcelain figurines she's so worried about." Mark ran his hand through his dark hair, a gesture I knew signaled his frustration. "This is unnecessary, Mac. Wire transfers exist for a reason." I reached across the table for his hand. "It's one night, and then we'll have our dream home." He squeezed my hand, but didn't look convinced. "I just don't understand why you won't let me come with you." "Because you have that important presentation for the river restoration project. It's only one night. I'll be perfectly safe at mom's." 2 days later, I stood in a private room at Pacific Northwest Bank as 2 tellers counted out $10 million in front of me. The money was placed in special tamper-evident bags, which were then loaded into 3 undescript buffel bags. As promised, Ben had sent 2 of his best men, David, a former military police officer, and Michael, who'd worked executive protection for CEOs. The drive to my mom's house was uneventful. We took an indirect route, switching lanes often to ensure we weren't being followed. David drove while Michael sat beside me in the back seat, his hand never far from his concealed weapon. When we arrived at my mom's modest suburban home, her eyes widened at the sight of the security team. Emily was there too, supposedly helping Mom prepare for a garden club meeting. I now realize that was just another lie. "Goodness, Sarah," Mom said as David and Michael carried the bags inside, "is all this security really necessary?" $10 million is something to take lightly, I replied, directing the men towards the home office where the safe was located. The safe was built into the wall behind a sliding bookcase. A bit dramatic, but Mom had insisted on the hidden feature when I had it installed. It was a serious piece of equipment. Fireproof, with an electronic lock and backup key system, it could easily hold
all 3 duffel bags with room to spare. As David and Michael placed the money inside, I couldn't help but notice Mom and Emily hovering in the doorway, their eyes fixed on the bags. At the time, I interpreted their interest as natural curiosity. Now I understand it was something far more calculating. "We'll be picking you up tomorrow at 9, David said as they prepared to leave. "Call if you need anything before then." After they left, an odd tension filled the house. Mom busied herself in the kitchen, preparing dinner with unusual enthusiasm. Emily peppered me with questions about the house I was buying, its location, and whether I planned to install a similar safe there. During dinner, Mom asked questions she'd never shown interest in before. "So, this money," she twirled spaghetti around her fork, "it's all cash, right?" "Yes, all cash. $500 mostly," I answered between bites. "And the bank just lets you walk out with that much?" Emily asked, her voice higher than usual. "Not exactly. There was quite the process."
I left the police station feeling hollowed out. The investigation was ongoing, but every lead seemed to dissolve into nothing. My mother and sister were professional ghosts now, slipping through international jurisdictions with their new identities and seemingly limitless funds. When I returned to my apartment, I found 3 voice messages waiting. The first was from John Miller, my lawyer, with an update on the international legal filings. The second was from the real estate agent who'd been helping me find a new dream home, checking if I wanted to view a property that had just come on the market. The third was from Mike Wilson, a potential business partner I'd been in talks with before the theft. His message was polite but clear. "Given the recent complications in your personal situation, I think it's best if we put our discussions on hold for now. Call me when things settle down." It wasn't the first professional opportunity that had evaporated since news of the theft broke. A profile in Tech Innovators Monthly had been quietly canceled. Speaking engagements were being rescheduled. Former colleagues who'd been eager to discuss potential collaborations suddenly had full calendars. The tech world, for all its talk of disruption and risk-taking, was deeply conservative when it came to personal instability. No one wanted to align themselves with someone whose judgment was so publicly called into question. After all, if I couldn't protect my own assets from my family, how could I be trusted with investors' money or sensitive industry partnerships? The breaking point came that evening when Mark returned from work, his expression carefully neutral as he set his laptop bag on the counter. "I got a call from Detective Martinez today," he said. "She wanted to know if I'd heard anything from your mother or sister." "And had you?" The question came out sharper than I intended. His face hardened. "Of course not. But the fact that you'd even asked that says everything about where we are right now." "Where we are? Yes, Sarah, where we are," he gestured between us. "You don't sleep, you barely eat, you spend every waking moment either talking to the detective or that lawyer or scrolling through international banking regulations. When was the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about the theft?" I tried to remember, but couldn't. The theft had become my whole world, the pursuit of justice my only purpose. "They stole $10 million, Mark. What am I supposed to do? Just let it go?" "No, but you need to find a way to live while you're dealing with this. It's been 6 weeks and you're still in exactly the same place emotionally as you were the day it happened." "That's not fair." "What's not fair is watching the woman I love disappear into this black hole of obsession and being completely powerless to help her." His voice cracked slightly. "I've tried to be patient, I've tried to be supportive, but you're not letting me in, Sarah. You're shutting down every attempt I make to connect with you." I felt defensive anger rising. "So this is my fault? I'm the victim here?" "Yes, you are, but you're using that as an excuse to push away everyone who cares about you. Your friends have stopped calling because you never return their messages. You've turned down every invitation to get out of this apartment, and when I try to talk about anything other than the theft, you shut down or find a way to circle back to it." Deep down, I knew he was right, but admitting it felt like another surrender, another loss I couldn't afford. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice small. Mark ran a hand through his hair. "I want you to decide if there's room in your life for anything besides this pursuit, because right now it doesn't feel like there is." "Are you giving me an ultimatum?" "I'm asking for honesty, Sarah. Can you see a future beyond this? Can you imagine a day when you're not consumed by finding them?" I opened my mouth to say yes, to promise him I could move forward, but the words wouldn't come. The truth was, I couldn't. The betrayal had become my identity. The pursuit had become my purpose. "I think I need some space," Mark finally said into the silence. "I'm going to stay with Alex for a while. When you're ready to have a life again, a real life, not this holding pattern, call me."
He packed a bag while I sat motionless on the couch, unable to find the words to make him stay, unsure if I even wanted to. When the door closed behind him, the apartment felt impossibly empty. I spent that night alone, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past 6 weeks, then expanding backward, examining my entire relationship with my mother and sister through this new, tainted lens. Had there been signs all along? Had I been willfully blind because acknowledging the truth was too painful? Or had they genuinely changed, corrupted by the prospect of wealth beyond their imagining? By morning, I'd reached rock bottom. I hadn't slept, I hadn't eaten. Mark was gone, my professional reputation was in tatters, the money was still missing, and despite weeks of international investigation, my mother and sister remained free, enjoying the fruits of their betrayal. I stood in my kitchen, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. The woman looking back at me was a stranger, hollow-eyed, gaunt, defeated. This wasn't who I was. This wasn't who I wanted to be. Something had to change. I just didn't know what or how. The call that changed everything came at 2:17 a.m., jolting me from a restless sleep. I fumbled for my phone, squinting at the screen. David Sullivan, one of the security guards who escorted me to my mother's house that fateful day. "David, what's wrong?" My voice was thick with sleep. "Miss Walker, I apologize for calling so late, but I need to speak with you immediately. It's about your situation." Fully awake now, I sat up. "It's the middle of the night. Can this wait until morning?" "No, ma'am, it can't. What I need to tell you shouldn't be discussed over the phone. I can be at your apartment in 20 minutes. His tone left no room for argument. "All right, I'll be here." Exactly 19 minutes later, my doorbell rang. David stood in the hallway, still wearing his security company polo shirt, his expression grave. "Thank you for seeing me," he said as I let him in. "Is the apartment secure? No cleaning service or maintenance staff been here recently?" "No, just me. What's this about, David?" He scanned the living room before speaking. "The money your mother and sister took, it wasn't real." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What?" "The cash in those bags was counterfeit. Sophisticated fakes, but fake nonetheless." I sank onto the couch, struggling to process his words. "That's impossible. I withdrew it myself from Pacific Northwest Bank. You were there." David nodded. "Yes, but what you don't know is that Ben, my boss, has a standard protocol for high-value transports. All cash bundles are tagged with tracking devices and security strips. When we placed the bags in your mother's safe, I activated those systems, and the trackers showed the bags leaving your mother's house at 4:12 a.m. and traveling to a private airfield. But here's the thing. The security strips detect the chemical composition of real currency. 2 hours after the bags left your mother's house, the strips registered a complete change in composition. The real money had been swapped out." My mind raced, trying to make sense of this revelation. So someone stole the real money before my mother took the bags? A double theft? David shifted uncomfortably. "Not exactly. The swap happened at Ben's secure facility the night before we delivered it to your mother's house. The money was replaced with high-quality counterfeits, visually indistinguishable from real currency." "You're saying Ben stole my money?" Anger began to replace confusion. "No, Miss Walker," David took a deep breath. "I'm saying you arranged the switch yourself." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. "What?" 3 days before the withdrawal, you contacted Ben privately. You said you had concerns about your mother's intentions and wanted to set up a contingency plan. You had us swap the real cash for counterfeits and secure the authentic currency in our most protected vault. My head spun. "David, I never did that. I would remember something like that." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a folded document. "This is the special instruction form you signed. That's your signature, isn't it?" I stared at the paper, at my unmistakable signature authorizing exactly what David had described. A memory flickered, Ben pulling me aside at the bank, a brief conversation I dismissed as standard security protocol, signing something without fully reading it amid the stress of the massive withdrawal. I don't remember this specifically, but everything was so chaotic that day. Ben wanted to contact you immediately after your mother took the bags, but our monitoring system malfunctioned. We only confirmed the switch happened yesterday when we did a full system diagnostic. He sent me to tell you in person because of the sensitive nature of the situation. So, My mother and sister have bags full of extremely convincing but ultimately worthless paper? The real $10 million is in our secure facility, waiting for your instructions. Laughter bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me, a strange, almost hysterical sound that I couldn't control. All this time, all this anguish, and my mother and sister had stolen worthless counterfeits. The cosmic justice of it was almost too perfect to believe. "I need to see it," I said when I could finally speak normally again. "The real money. I need to see it with my own eyes." "Of course, I can take you there now." 2 hours later, I stood in a climate-controlled vault beneath Ben's security company headquarters, staring at 3 familiar duffel bags. With trembling hands, I unzipped one, revealing stacks of genuine $500 bills as I remembered them from the bank. "It's all here," Ben confirmed, standing beside me. $10 million, untouched. "And the tracking devices and the fake money?" I asked, a plan already forming in my mind. "Still active," he said. "We can monitor their location in real time." He showed me a tablet displaying a blinking down on a map, currently showing movement in Monaco. I straightened my shoulders, feeling truly awake for the first time in weeks. "I want everything you have on their movements. Every location, every stop, every transaction you can trace." "Miss Walker, if I may ask, what are you planning to do?" A smile spread across my face. Not the broken, hollow expression I'd worn for weeks, but something sharper, more determined, something I should have done from the beginning. "I'm going to take control of the situation." Over the next 72 hours, I transformed from victim to strategist. I assembled a small, trusted team. Ben for security expertise, Detective Martinez, who was initially skeptical but quickly convinced by the evidence, Amy Green, my former chief operations officer and closest friend, and John Miller, my lawyer who helped navigate